Hello and welcome to the channel today. I'm Will and I'm going to be talking about my reading plans for the third quarter of 2024. For the first quarter, January to March, I was very busy at uni, so I wasn't active on the channel. But for April to June, I logged what I intended to read in the second quarter, and I'm doing the same today, but for the third quarter. And then I intend to do that, you guessed it, for the last 3 months of the year. And then at the end of the year in December, I will reflect on what I thought I would read and see how accurate was I, how much of a mood reader am I, and do I know myself well enough to predict how much I will read or what I will read. But I'm kind of cheating a bit with July because as I record this, it is the 17th of July, and I've read a few of the books that I'm talking about in July already, so a little bit of cheating, but I gotta give myself that because I think I won't do great with keeping on track with the rest. But let's get into it, talking about my reading intentions for the next 3 months. Fantasy, historical fiction, horror, contemporary fiction, and more. I'll whiz through most of what I intend to read in July because I covered that in my mid-month update, so you can watch that video for more depth on my thoughts on the books I've already read and what I intend to read next. But quickly going through it, I've read and adored Horns by Joe Hill. There will be a review on the channel at some point for that. Standalone horror, great characters, incredible premise. Stephen King-esque because, of course, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, but very unique as well. He's not just trying to copy his father. Recommended to me by Papa Gwyn, and I was hooked. And I'm definitely going to be picking up more Joe Hill. And then I had, of course, A Time of Blood for part of the Brothers Gwyn read-along. I'll be mentioning that in each month of this because it's a read-along. So the third book, A Time of Courage, you may see in August, and then we're going on to the Bloodsworn Saga for the next 3 months after that. So please do join the Brothers Gwyn Discord if you want to chat about Of Blood and Bone, the Bloodsworn Saga. If you've not started it yet, you can ask questions and kind of see what you're in for, or you can catch up because we're not too far in, or you can just join us with the Bloodsworn Saga, but I'll be talking more about that later on. And then I've got a new release, Dark Frontier by Matthew Harvey. Already read this, really great. He's usually a historical fiction author focusing on kind of Anglo-Saxon period in England, but he's branched out to his other favourite genre, which is the Western. He has a lot of kind of Western tropes in his Anglo-Saxon books, and I really like how he kind of mixes and matches that. But he's gone full Western mode here. You've got the typical small ranch against the big landowner, with people with a hidden past, those trying to put away their violence and live a more peaceful life, but the circumstances just won't allow. And so you've got all those great Western tropes shoved into Dark Frontier and executed really well. And then another new release is A Good Deliverance. Got a review of this over on the Brothers Gwyn with my brother. I said this isn't a book for everyone. It's got a very unique writing style that took me a little bit to adapt to. But once you get into it, a great chronicler's story with a lot of emotion and not your typical medieval historical fiction. And then I am currently reading The Sword of Kagan. This is just so far brilliant. This is possibly the most popular fantasy self-published book. Maybe I'm wrong off the top of my head. This is the one I can think of. But yeah, let me know if there's any others in the comments below. But please also let me know, is this one of your favourite books? Because I think I've only heard positive things about this. There's those that didn't love it but still enjoyed it. I haven't come across anyone who actively disliked The Sword of Kagan. But 100 pages through and I am loving it. And then I forgot to mention, I've already read and finished The Final Empire, book 1 of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I'll be going more in depth into my thoughts with my brother Ed over on the Brothers Gwyn soon, and I'll be talking more about this series later on in the video. And then last up for July, I have Jade City by Fonda Lee. So this is one that 3 years ago I think I started, read 100 pages, was really gripped and enthralled, but I had exams, so I got distracted. Then I had some books I had to read and just never returned, which I did myself a disservice because I was really enjoying it. Anyway, my brother recently read it and really, really enjoyed it. So I'm feeling that need to dive in again, and I hopefully will be in July. And so yeah, that is 7 books for July. Now let's get into August, where I believe I have 8. And that is going to start with the obvious one, A Time of Courage, finishing the Of Blood and Bone read-along, which, of course, finishes in August. We're doing 1 instalment a month. This is just, obviously, I've read this a few times. It's by Papa Gwyn, but I'm listening to them via Audible for the first time, and Damien Lynch does a brilliant job. And, so much of this is just epic, and I cannot wait to get to A Time of Courage. And then I've got The Well of Ascension, book 2 of Mistborn. I think it's Era 1. Maybe Era 2. I don't know if the next series goes back in time. I don't know. The first Mistborn books. I enjoyed the book 1, The Final Empire, enough to read book 2. And so, yeah, that is The Well of Ascension. A lot of people say they prefer The Well of Ascension over The Final Empire. So hopefully I'll fall into that category. Because I did enjoy book 1, but obviously you want each book to get better and better, don't you? So hopefully I fall into that camp. And then something very, very different. I've got The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I watched the adaptation of Daisy Jones and the Six, which she also wrote, and I loved it. And so I thought, I'm not going to read that book because I really enjoyed the programme. You know, I might be conflicted because I heard there's some big changes. And I did it the wrong way around. I became attached and invested in the programme before the book. So I thought I'd try a different book by her actual most successful book and see if it's for me. Often, well, not often, but every now and then I like to just jump completely out of my comfort zone with a genre I've never really read or engaged with before. And so, yeah, that's kind of my leap, my crazy leap that I'll be talking about in this video. And then I've got The Words of Kings and Prophets, Book 2 of Ghoul Song by Shauna Lawless. I've read 2 novellas and book 1 of this series, and she is just a brilliant writer. Her writing style feels very ethereal and magical, but rooted in grit as well. I love how she mixes those. It's quite hard because they juxtapose each other. One is kind of about kind of stripped back, you expect it to be kind of sharp prose, and the other one is quite magical and ethereal and colourful, but she finds a way to blend them together, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where The Words of Kings and Prophets takes me. And then I've got The Will of the Many by James Islington. After hearing Two to Ramble talk about how much they love this, I need to read it, and the same because Ed, my brother, has loved it so much. And I think over on Rekindled Reader, he is currently reading Will of the Many, and he just said that he can't put it down. It's just so good. And so when I hear that many great things about it swirling around, even though it's nearly a year since it was released, I need to pick it up. And ancient Roman inspired fantasy, training school, overthrowing an empire, I'm there. I'm definitely there. And then I'm going to read Deathless, hopefully, by Rob J. Hayes. He's doing something very interesting, releasing 3 books very close together, set in the same world but different periods, so you can read them in any order. Deathless is one of the novellas, so I'll be picking that up first. And I think, is there more for that month? Blood of Midgard, a new series from the author of the Three Kingdoms Chronicles, more self-published I'm talking about. And so Blood of Midgard, it's Norse, it's by Baptiste, I'm going to pick it up. That's a concoction for a great book. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And then the last one for August is The Voyage Home by Pat Barker. I've read and adored The Silence of the Gales, which is reviewed actually on the channel. And yeah, I absolutely love The Silence of the Gales and the sequel, The Women of Troy. This takes the tale, of course, you guessed it, of Troy, but it's a feminist retelling from the perspective of Briseis, who is a character who's so often overlooked. This is dark. It is about survival day to day. The characters are just amongst the greatest characters I've ever come across. Please help yourself and pick this book up. And if you're not quite sure if it's something for you, please check out my review where I talk about it more in depth. Pat Barker, master of her craft. Silence of the Gales, her magnum opus, in my opinion. So please do check it out. And that is what I'll be reading, hopefully, in August. And then in September, I've given myself the busiest month of all. I've got 9 books. And so here are more. A lot will be continuing what I've talked about already, series. But also I'll be starting up my second year of uni at Durham University in October. And so I want to get a little bit ahead on some texts. And so you'll be hearing about them. But first up, we're beginning the Bloodsworn read-along, The Shadow of the Gods. And so, yeah, that will be September. Book 2 will be Hunger of the Gods. And book 3, The Fury of the Gods, in November, because that's when The Fury of the Gods comes out. It comes out on the 20th or the 22nd of October. And so we want to get right on there and just enjoy chatting to you all about the Bloodsworn saga. We can't wait for it to hit the big wide world. And yeah, so that is The Shadow of the Gods. And then finishing the Mistborn Era 1 and Era 2 series with The Hero of Ages. And so I've heard this is a great climax and finale to the series. And so, yeah, basically regurgitating what I said when I talked about The Well of Ascension. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it picks up. Really enjoyed how book 1 finished. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see where the series goes. I mentioned I'd have some uni reads on here, and I have Aurora Floyd. And that is all I know. It's Victorian literature, part of my Victorian literature module for the English side of my degree. And that is the extent of my knowledge about this. But it's the first book that we'll be covering, so I want to get a bit ahead and start with that. Sorry, I can't give a bit more detail. But then next I have Heart-Shaped Box, which is by Joe Hill. I think this may have been his first book. I think he did some short stories before then, including The Black Phone, which was adapted into the film starring Ethan Hawke, which I did not know until last week that it was written by Joe Hill, which is just awesome. And so, yeah, Heart-Shaped Box, there's a ghost involved, a famous artist. What more can you ask for? I'm very looking forward to diving into that. And then I'm finally going to finish the Boudica series, Dreaming the Serpent Sphere. Much as I said with Jade City, I started this, got quite far into it, about 200 pages, I think. Near the 300 page mark, actually. And then exams, other events just occurred that sucked me away from it. And I felt it was wrong to just kind of continue. And so I'm going to reset, remove that. Oh, I'll leave it because it's a bit stuck. But remove that and start again, and hopefully finishing the Boudica Quartet. The first 3 books are just exceptional. I think maybe I've waited so long because it's always a bit scary finishing a series you love. One, because you'll know everything in that world, and that's quite bittersweet, but also because the ending can make or break a series. I believe it'd be a great ending. I've heard from Papa Gwyn and Ed and many others, but I still have that bit of anxiety in me, hoping that it does the rest of the series service. So yeah, that is Dreaming the Serpent Spear. And then I have Intermezzo, which is being released in September by Sally Rooney, the author of Normal People, Beautiful World, Where Are You, and Conversations with Friends. Very different genre from what I usually read, but I've loved the 3 books I've read by her, and I cannot wait for Intermezzo. All I know is this is about 2 brothers, very different, contrasting from each other. They've kind of grown apart, but it's about their relationship. And there'll be far more to it, as there always is with Sally Rooney works. I just love her character studies, and it's contemporary fiction, and it just always makes me think so much, and I cannot wait for Intermezzo. And then another new release, this is Henry V by Dan Jones, non-fiction, the only non-fiction I've got on here, I believe, actually. And yes, Dan Jones talking about Henry V, one of the most renowned figures of English history. He is kind of heralded as the greatest English king, greatest in the sense of what it meant to be a king there, not as in a good person, but he's a fascinating figure who kind of went through a transformation of being kind of the outsider when he was younger, and then when he got to the throne just took it on, and he was very successful in the terms, of course, how successful to be a king. And it's written by Dan Jones, who is just charismatic, and that comes across in his writing. And so, yeah, his works are just magnetic. You cannot take your eyes off of the page. And I cannot wait to read his most recent release. And talking about recent releases, we'll talk about another book that's released in September, and that is The Land of the Living and the Dead, continuing on from the words of Kings and Prophets. Irish mythology, mixed with Irish history, late 10th century, early 11th century Ireland. What more can you ask for? And so, yeah, as I talked about book 2 more, I won't bore you by regurgitating myself with book 3. And then, do I have anything else? I have the Poetic Edda. This is also for my English literature course, and the Poetic Edda will be for my Old English, Old Norse module. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into this. We covered little bits and pieces in my first year, and I'm looking forward to carrying on more in the second year. And I believe that is 9 books. So I've got 7 books for July, 8 for August, and 9 for September. So in total, that is, some quick maths, 24 books. And so hopefully I can reach that. We'll have a reflection at the end of the year, or maybe I'll do it in October, looking at did I keep to these goals. So I'm being ambitious, but hopefully I can keep up to it. Please let me know what you're intending to read. What highlights have you already read in July? And let me know if you'll be picking any of these up, because if there's a few of you who'd like to hear about my specific thoughts on one of these books, I'll make sure to cover it more on the channel and over on the Brothers Gwyn as well. But everyone, thank you so much for watching as always. Stay safe and happy reading.